Alright, everyone, just gonna be doing a little bit of sketchbook. Just kind of a little bit of doodling. I'm trying out a bit of Crayola marker again. I haven't used it in a long time. I think I only did like one Crayola marker thing earlier this year, which is the cover on my sketchbook, and then pretty much I haven't done anything besides that. But I've always liked kind of the vibe or the feel that the Crayola marker has. Especially when I combine it with water, it kind of makes this really nice glossy shine kind of look. Probably a little hard to see on camera, and it might not, that part might not even show up on camera, but I did let this drawing probably sit a little too long. I started this and just kind of like as a morning little doodle, so it sat for maybe a couple hours. I was kind of trying to like switch things up a bit, and I wanted to start a new sketchbook, but then I was just like, I kind of have this one already started, and so I'm just starting from the back of it. And yeah, I have these drawings in the front that I was doing with like a fine line pen and that sort of thing. And then instead of starting a whole new sketchbook, I was just like, well, it'd pretty much be the same experience, just starting from the back. Kind of feels like a fresh sketchbook in that way. Every once in a while, I kind of just get that feeling like, oh, I should probably start some kind of something fresh. Got a little bit of some dark area here. And then add some line weights. The thing I really do like about the marker and kind of this little process that I've developed over time, just kind of experimenting with the Crayola marker, is really when I go in with water, since the Crayola marker is water-based, then it really fades up the ink, I guess, or the marker, and gets my lines really faded, which is nice. And if it wasn't for that, I probably would have dropped this a while ago, since I have to work with very thick lines, which can be a little hard to get a lot of detail out of. But since the lines can be faded away fairly easily, we just add in a bit of water. then it makes it pretty doable for more like complex, detailed scenes and that sort of thing. And I can kind of like go in with a bit of water and loosen up the dark a bit. Yeah, just kind of helps get a few extra tones in there. I'm thinking I'll have another character back here. Usually when I'm in a very like sketchbook kind of mood, I don't really have too much of ideas for what I'm going to do. It's a lot just kind of like throwing down some lines and kind of just start to my sister always calls it like sculpting, kind of is what she does for art, and I feel like mine's like very similar to that kind of same sort of vibe. Really just not thinking too much about what I'm making and just kind of sculpting out, and little by little making something out of it. And then a lot of the idea and theme kind of comes around. They'll kind of get to a point where somewhere along the drawing, kind of get like a little bit of a finalizing, kind of like, okay, this is where I'm gonna go with the drawing. But a lot of times, a lot of that is just kind of like discovery as it gets going. And a lot of kind of what I play around with is really like the forms and layers and that kind of thing. Like trying to create a lot of layers. So like this helmet and these pieces that are overlapping. And you can kind of tell that I focus on that with, like, I'm starting with a lot of the overlap since it's in ink. I kind of have to start with a lot of those details. And then finish it off with the helmet. And I try to focus a lot on variety too. So I could just make the hair on this top thing a lot like the first one, but then I'd have a lot of repeating kind of shapes there. So I want to give as much variety as possible. And then I'll keep the helmet dark. I used to struggle a lot with like composition and kind of figuring out how to go about these more complex scenes. And from looking at a lot of Kim Jong-il's art, a Korean artist, he does a lot of, if you look at a lot of his stuff, he uses a lot of black to separate and guide the eye. So that's kind of something I picked up along the way. That's really helps with kind of setting up these more detailed scenes with it can get a little congested with a lot of characters. detail. I apologize for the background noise. I don't know how much of that is coming up on the video, but that's my rabbit in the background, who is also my roommate, so he kind of just does whatever he wants in the background on all my videos. And he really likes when whenever I'm filming or streaming as well. I just kind of start whatever construction projects he has going on in the background. Yeah, I always find I really enjoy drawing in a sketchbook. I probably I prefer it over like normal paper, but then when it comes time to like putting it together in a book or something, and I plan to come out with like a book every year of like the sketches or the drawings I've done that year, and it just is much harder to like scan or photograph the sketchbook drawings. They're a little awkward, but I think it still turns out pretty nice. And I also can't rip out or take out these drawings, so when people want to purchase an original or something, I can't really sell the originals of the sketchbook. But I really should start working on setting up prints. I know a lot of people have asked for a while now for prints of a lot of the drawings and things I post on YouTube, so I'm going to do my best to start doing that. I'm always like, oh, I should probably get prints done, and then I don't know, and then I just like forget over time, and then not really sure why either. It's probably something should be on my priority list. I always like when I get down lower on the character like this, and I kind of did it with the first character. But when I start to run out of room, I like to try to get a little creative with problem solving and maybe make their legs or different parts bend in a way so it still fits on. One thing I really don't like doing is making the legs go tucked behind or like not show onto the drawing. And then I'll think, maybe have this bracer dark. Also these back pieces. Try to smudge some of the black areas so that I don't get marker streaks, and it kind of just makes it a little bit softer. I always like when the ink is really fresh with the marker. I didn't have my water next to me when I was doing this outside. I was a little lazy and didn't want to carry a bunch of things out. I had coffee as well out there, and kind of just wanted to go outside and drink some coffee, so I didn't want to bring all of my art supplies out at one time. That's alright. The acrylic marker kind of stays a bit activated for a while, so. But catching it right as it's still fresh makes for some like really good, like very comparable to ink wash. If you can catch it right when it's fresh. The only thing is you can't get many tones out of it. You could if you like really like alternated back between laying down some black and then going in and washing it right away. You could probably get a lot more values out of it. And then if you wanted to go further than that, you could let it let it settle into the paper for a bit of time, and then go and try to drag that out from there. And as the ink from the marker settles onto the page, you'll begin to get a little bit lighter and lighter. But I kind of like to just have everything, do everything in a bit of one go. I know that if I come back to a drawing that's a bit old, or too much time has passed, I kind of lose a bit of that passion for it, and it just kind of won't. I just like really struggle to go back to it. I've been really into like this kind of tiger warrior theme. I think honestly my favorite pages in these sketchbooks is the back page. Like I'm drawing on the back of the cover on this one, and then I really like how just like solid it feels. As on some of these other pages, the page can start to really warp with the more ink on it. It starts to not be as like firm I don't usually do the whiskers this early since it can get a little lost in the rest of the drawing, but I'll kind of just see what happens. Just kind of going a lot based on feeling, not really thinking of much at all, really. It's kind of the point I like to be at with my drawings, though. I feel like the less I think while I'm doing the drawing, it'll turn out much better. Whenever I think too much, characters can look a little bit stiff, kind of uncanny or unnatural, in like a not positive way. Sometimes those things can be cool. I'll get some of this face in. Yeah, I just really like the greenish blue kind of wash. And really, the sooner I can get in there with that water, usually the better it's gonna turn out. And got a little bit of a space thing going on right here, so. I think I'm really gonna twist this character. This is kind of one of those moments that I usually do a lot better when I'm not thinking. As soon as I start thinking about what I'm doing, it's almost like then I stop drawing. I'm not drawing anymore. I'm just like thinking about what could happen. But as long as I kind of remain in like this neutral state, then I can kind of just be there watching the drawing happen. One thing I found that kind of helps get to that state of not thinking is sometimes trying to draw a little bit fast, like kind of in a way that you don't have time to think. It's just kind of like go in. But this is a weird balance to it, where you don't want to be too quick, where you feel like you're rushing it. So there's kind of like a sweet spot where you feel like you're just kind of drawing quickly, but at like pretty much like at a efficient pace, really. And I think drawing at that sweet spot really lessens the mistakes that I can make. and not even really mistakes, but I think it just like really just makes a more truthful drawing. How this character like really stretching over. Get a little bit of the stripes in the back here. That'll give me a bit of separation. I'll go in with a wash. One of the big downsides that I kind of solved with the Crayola marker, one of the downsides is that the markers dry out pretty quick, but they dry out in like kind of bursts. So the marker I'm using right now might dry out if I like drew for like an hour or so, and then really I have to have multiple on hand, so that when one dries out, I just kind of rotate. But it's not too bad because you can rotate between like 3 markers if you're drawing for long periods of time, and then it's really enough to get by. And then the next day they'll pretty much all be reset. Might just sometimes kind of get like a little bit of a wash going in behind these guys. Kind of gives a nice fade and keeps them, kind of pops them forward and really opens up all the white areas or lighter areas of the character. This is kind of one of those points where I want to get a little bit creative with the space use. So I really wanted to still get this character's feet into the shot. So I curled up his body a bit here to make sure that he's still here. I always like to show as much as I can onto the page. It can get a little weird when some of the characters have like half their body off. And the stripes are really important for kind of showing how this leg is in the form. And the angle too, so I'm trying to that's the nice thing about drawing tigers, is you can like make them look pretty three-dimensional just off of the details of their stripes and different things. Which is kind of what I was talking about, like the overlaps. What I really like messing around with them is because really the more overlaps you have is like stacking detail, and then also able to make the characters look a lot more three-dimensional, since it's adding more planes and kind of like makes it a little bit convincing. Whereas like that little like crown kind of thing I got going on with his head, if I just did a normal tiger face, it would look a little bit more flat. But since these planes are kind of like popping out the top there, it just adds a little bit. Alright, now I can kind of catch this ink because it's a little bit fresh and not fully dried. Do a little bit of blending on the blacks, and then I can catch this top area if I want to. A little bit darker with the cast, and I'll kind of keep some areas that I think the tiger might have a little light areas on. A lot of when I draw, it's kind of a lot of like, if it feels right, and a lot of adjusting and adapting to what happens, especially in the way that I draw, with like placing down lines first and not much thinking. I try to adapt a lot to what's happening. Alright, I think I'll end the video at this. I don't want to keep it too long for you guys. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. As a quick reminder, if you don't know, recently came out with a 540-page sketchbook of everything I've done the last 3 years, and the link will be in the description if you're interested in that. But yeah, so it's all pretty much every single drawing I've done in the last 3 years is in this, besides some of my digital stuff. But yeah, so if you guys, yeah, I think that's just gonna do it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching and hanging out.